What's happening, everybody? I'm Steve, and welcome back to Junk Drummer TV, where I give my initial reactions, my analysis, and my hot takes on the drummers of today and yesterday, and maybe tomorrow if I stick around that long. I am a gigging musician and a professional drum teacher, and I have been those things for the last 20 years. So, on today's episode, we're going to give a little love to the jazz holes out there, and we're going to do Buddy Rich. Now, Buddy Rich is, from the beginning of this channel, been one of the most requested drummers in the comments section, and it's because it's Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich is the first drum god. Yeah, Gene Krupa was as well when you're thinking of household name, but Buddy Rich was the first. He was the John Bonham, he was the Keith Moon, he was the Neil Peart of his time. Everyone knew who Buddy Rich was. He started out playing as a drummer in singing fronted big bands, and then he of course went on to front the Buddy Rich Big Band, and man, he kept that mantle going. Towards the end of his life, he had to be one of the few people who had like a big name act that was still a big band. When you're talking about Buddy Rich, you're talking about one of the greatest drummers to ever pick up drumsticks. No, I'm not going to say he's the best drummer in the world, because lots of people say that. And here's the thing, most people who say that, do you really know that much about Buddy Rich, or are you just kind of regurgitating what you've heard other drummers say? Because, his biggest known number was the Channel One Suite. I had to play the Channel One Suite in college, and it was one of the most miserable experiences of my life, because I was definitely not good enough to play it well, and it's just this gigantic 10-minute piece. It's actually one of the reasons I'm not using it on this episode, because the episode would be 30 minutes long, but that's his most well-known composition. Buddy Rich, he's the fucking man. He was very well known for kind of being an asshole, being a real hard taskmaster to his musicians. There's a real famous, if you look up on YouTube, just put Buddy Rich bus tape, and it's just him dressing down his whole band. He doesn't seem like a very pleasant guy in that tape, but he was also a regular on the Johnny Carson show, and that's how a lot of people got to know him, as it was Buddy Rich, that guy who could play drums really, really fast. So there you go, man. That's about all I need to tell you about Buddy Rich. So let's get into it. We're going to be watching Buddy Rich play Windmachine, and this is from the Johnny Carson show. Counting off the band. That's a very standard big band routine. Yeah. Man, you're just transported to another time when you hear this style of playing. God, just chops, man. Crazy chops, crazy independence. If you're mainly a rock guy and you don't know anything about jazz music, this is going to seem very alien to you. This is going to be, I'm going to be giving a lot of oversimplified explanations during this, because truth be told, I'm a junior varsity jazz player. I can get the jazz gig done, but it's not going to be fantastic. I can get it solid, but that's about it. Jazz drums, big band, what we're talking about here. Of course, jazz has all your subgenres, just like any other music. You've got your big band, you've got your bop, you got your hard bop, you got your post bop, you got your cool jazz. Jazz drumming is a completely different animal than rock drumming. With rock drumming, always think of it like this. Rock drumming is very foundational. The drums are here, the bass players here, the guitar players here, and everything's built on top of the drumming and the bass playing. Jazz music, the best way I can explain it is it's more interactive. You're not just the pulse and the foundation. You're a little more active in interplaying with the other musicians, and that's what we're going to see a lot of here. He always claimed that he never practiced. Man, if that's true, fuck him. A lot of independence to be able to play like this. There's your saxophone break. The basis of this jazz music is the jazz pattern on the ride cymbal, and 2 and 4 on the hi-hat. I would guess he's probably feathering the bass drum and dropping in what we call bombs. Can't really hear it very well on this VCR tape. Yeah, man. It's just a style of drumming that seems to be gone. Like, I know it exists in the college realm, and that's something we'll talk about later. But just, unless you're in a major city, you're just not going to get to see cool shit like this anymore. It's sad. The bass player's all over it. Right here you can see the guy on the back. That is Johnny Carson's drummer. One of these days I may tell this story. I got to have lunch with that guy. That's Ed Shaughnessy. The story of me getting to go to lunch with Ed Shaughnessy at PASIC in like PASIC 96 also involves Yanni's drummer, Charlie Adams. Stick around for that. Oh yeah, big drum break. It's real rudimental, but swinging rudimental playing. Okay, so this is why you pay the admission, is to see the Buddy Rich scorching drum solo. Woo. Just some crazy chops, man. Everything's swung. There's nothing straight. That's that really old school left-hand traditional technique. Let's talk about that for a second. And you can see it if you can watch his hands, you know, close enough with them going so fast. Kind of the accepted traditional grip now really has ran through DCI. It's a little bit more of a precise technique. It's more like this. You know, you're resting the drumstick on your ring finger. You're making your fulcrum here, and this is kind of hanging out. And it's more like this, and that's a real drum corps. But those guys back in the day, it was more like this, if you can see that. And they used a lot more fingers. You'll see a lot more finger action. It's almost like a lost art to play with that old school traditional grip like that. You can see he's got his snare drum tilted to an angel. Ha! I do that lick. That lick right there. Maybe that's where I got that. But that right, left, right, left. You can do it as like a double stroke. The band I play in, we play a lot of gypsy jazz flavored things, and I do that lick. I guess maybe that's where I got that. You know, he loves being flashy. He's always doing lots of like big crossovers. Now, what's happening here? Oh, here's something that's probably very different to a rock ear. Listen to the toms. The toms are tuned very, very high pitched. You know, when we think about a rock drum set or a pop drum set, you think of like, you know, kind of low thuddy, you know, thum, 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 right? Those jazz drums, it's a completely different way of tuning. It's a really high-pitched sound, and they had the tension tightened so you could get the articulation that you need when you're playing so fast. And that helped cut through, you know, a 25, 30 man or person big band, where back before this, obviously, but when he started, you know, there were no microphones on the drums, so you had to be able to cut through all of this sound. And one way that you did that was with high-pitched tunings on your toms. You'll hear that really big here. He's counting the band back in. That's Doc Severinsen back there, if you're old enough to remember the Johnny Carson show. Yeah, man, it's cool back in the day. You know, it's almost like, you know, Dave Letterman kind of took on the late night mantle of making sure that drummers got some. Like, if you remember when Dave Letterman was ending, he had, like, you know, weeks of just guest drummers. And that started with Carson. Carson was a good drummer, too. Yeah, boy, you know he's going to have that at the end. Go ahead. Almost like a one-handed roll there on the left hand. Man, he's older right here. I think this is from 79. Those old jazz drummers, man, they played until they died. Yeah. Man, go ahead, Buddy Rich. The boy wonder. Yeah, it's Doc Severinsen from back in the day. My dad used to watch Carson all the time when I was a kid. So, there you go, man. Buddy Rich with the Johnny Carson big band playing Windmachine. I don't really get to play jazz that much. There was a time when I was actually in a jazz group. It was called the Paul Bellini Trio. I'll send a pair of drumsticks to the first person who gets that reference. But you know, we ended up playing at like restaurants, and mainly restaurants as background noise for people to eat. And that's kind of the shitty part of trying to be a jazz musician. Unless you're in a big city, it's a little different. But if you're anywhere else, man, you're going to have to go to the fancy restaurant to see a jazz group, or you're going to have to go to like some destination vacation that revolves around like a jazz fest. Some jam bands festivals will sometimes have cats like John Scofield. But man, unfortunately, jazz music, and especially big band, is kind of a dying off breed. Okay, I know there's a bunch of cats out there. You're in college right now, and you have big dreams of being the next Charlie Parker, and that's pretty much where the jazz scene is living, unfortunately. I think that there are very few modern jazz guys. I'm going to get killed for this in the comment section, but I think there's very few modern jazz people that are actually moving the scene along. I think the Bad Plus is one of them. I think the Dave Holland Big Band, which is actually a big band that's still kind of operating with, I think, with some fairly regularity. Medeski, Martin, and Wood. There was this other one called the Esbjorn's Vincent Trio. I think that guy died. Very few jazz groups are innovating anymore, unfortunately. And I don't want this to turn into me bitching about the jazz scene, because there'll be plenty of time for that later. But let's celebrate Buddy Rich and big band drumming. It's just, you just don't see it anymore. The last time you really got to see it all the time was when Max Weinberg was on Conan O'Brien, and he was kind of single-handedly keeping that scene alive. Buddy Rich, you want to find out about swinging rudiments and over-the-top chops and how to kick 30 musicians in the ass with your drum set? Watch a little Buddy Rich. So, if you enjoyed that and you thought it was valuable, please give me a double tap on the subscribe and the notification bell. Please feel free to like, comment, and share. And remember, if you want to get like Buddy, even though he says he never did, keep practicing until it's easy.